straight into the roof of the net. Nice one. Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams here.
Hello and good evening. You're watching Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get started. Right on the show today, India's qualification for the semi-finals of the Women's World Cup hangs by a slender thread. This after being defeated by Australia last night. What went wrong? What separated the two sides? And India tonight will be cheering on Pakistan. Stay tuned to know why. And speaking of Pakistan and cricket, the PCB have decided to drop Babar Azam, their best batter, from the remainder of the series against England. What does this mean for their cricket moving forward, and how does it always happen to be the former captain? Over in football, Kylian Mbappé comes under the scanner for partying. Fans are enraged, saying he should have played for France instead. Is the media and the general fans out there, the critics and trolls, putting unreal moral codes on sporting superstars? But first, let's take a look at the headlines. Starting with tennis, men's world number one Jannik Sinner won the men's Shanghai Masters title. The Italian beat Serbia's Novak Djokovic 7-6, 6-3 to pick up his seventh title this year. The match lasted 1 hour and 37 minutes. With this win, Sinner also denied Djokovic his 100th career title. In football, Portugal beat Poland 3-1 in their Nations League clash in Warsaw. Portugal's Bernardo Silva scored the first goal for his team in the 26th minute. Cristiano Ronaldo's goal came in at the 37th minute and extended their lead. The Polish side, of course, struggled throughout the game. Their lone goal came in the 78th minute of the match. Portugal's Jan Bednarek scored the final goal of the night. Ruth Chepngetich smashed the women's marathon world record in Chicago. The Kenyan reached the finish line in 2 hours, 9 minutes and 56 seconds. She slashed nearly 2 minutes off the previous record set in 2023. This marks Chepngetich's third Chicago marathon win. The International Olympic Committee, or IOC, has withheld Indian body's share of the funds from the Olympic Solidarity Program. What does this mean? The IOC claimed that the internal disputes at Indian Olympics Association needs clarification, and that except for direct payments to athletes on Olympic scholarships, the IOC and Olympic Solidarity will not make any payments to the IOA. And wrapping it up with news from golf. Dan Bradbury won the 2024 Open de France. The Englishman took home his second World Tour title. Bradbury also won $550,000 as cash prize for the win. India's qualification for the Women's Cricket World Cup semi-final hangs by a thread, and that's because of a heartbreaking, narrow defeat by just 9 runs to Australia last night. This was India's last group stage game. Now we have to speak about what went wrong with the team. But before that, let's talk about whether India can still make it to the top 4. All eyes are on the New Zealand versus Pakistan match, the last group stage game in Group A. That will determine who will make it to the semi-final. Indian fans will have to cheer for a Pakistan win so that India goes through, but by not so much. Let me explain. Here's how the group looks. If you take a look at it, this is how it looks like at this point. Australia, of course, has qualified right at the top, sitting on top of that points table after that win. They have 8 points, an amazing net run rate. They're through to the semi-finals. But mathematically, 3 teams are in the fray for that second spot, and they happen to be the 3 teams below Australia, India, New Zealand and Pakistan. New Zealand and Pakistan, they play the last group game tonight. Obviously, it's advantageous because you have the calculations right in front of you. A win by New Zealand over Pakistan is all they need, just a win, and they're through, because that will mean they'll have more points than India. They will leapfrog India. Of course, had India beaten Australia last night, things would have been trickier for the White Ferns. They will have had to win by a certain amount of margin to make it past India. But for now, the win is enough. Of course, if Pakistan beats New Zealand, they also come level with India on 4 points, which means it all boils down to the net run rate. So that's why India will be hoping that Pakistan win, but just about, so that the net run rate is still not as good as theirs. Obviously, it's quite a lot to happen for India to make it to the knockouts. So how did India, one of the strongest sides in the tournament, find themselves in this situation here? It's simply put that first game against New Zealand. That really hurt them. A game they were caught napping, a match that saw their captain Harmanpreet Kaur lose her cool, the seniors in the side not delivering. India looked like the side they truly are only in the games that followed that. The seniors pulled their weight, the lead pacer was clinical, top order contributed, fielding was phenomenal, but it was not enough. They were strategically behind when it came to stopping Australia.
The entire team contributes. They don't depend on one or two players. They have a lot of all-rounders who contribute. We also planned well, and we were there in the game. They didn't give away easy runs and made it difficult. They are an experienced side. We know their experience. They know how to win games like that. We have to learn from them.
That was Indian captain Harmanpreet Kaur right after that loss, and rightly said there. Australia just know how to win from any scenarios. Just size the two teams up on the night here. One team had two key personnel injured out of the game. One was their captain and keeper, and the other one of their key pacers. They were playing in front of a very partisan crowd that was vociferously supporting the opposition. And then you have the other side. Yes, they had an injury. It was a last-minute one. One of their key spinners, Asha Shobana, injured herself just before the game. A big blow. But they had their captain right there in the middle when the onus was there to take her team across the line. She'd scored a half-century. She looked good. Yet they ended up falling short. Smriti Mandhana was not among the runs in one of the most critical games. The 17th over by Megan Schutt, that was clinical, where Kaur was kept quiet. Then, of course, that last over. Harmanpreet is still there, but she's losing her partners at the other end. It's a big ask, yet she takes a single in the middle of the over to give an inexperienced, actually just about anyone else, the strike when she was the woman in form, the woman to take her team through. There are, of course, many questions that we can ask here, but the larger point is these things matter. The smaller things, the smaller moments is where it makes the difference between winning and ending up on a losing side in a high-pressure situation like this match was. Australia managed to hold its nerves, and that's quality right there, a mindset and a mental makeup that very few teams can really boast of the world over. That mental aptitude is what probably set the two teams apart yesterday. Both had setbacks, yet one emerged stronger than the other, showing no over-reliance on just one person and rising to the challenge, something India can only learn from. Yes, this loss is heartbreaking and there is still some hope for the fans, but there is much to reflect on even post this tournament. Is anything ever allowed to settle down, breathe, take shape before shaking it all up again? Apparently not in Pakistan cricket. A horrible test, a few low scores, and Pakistan is always ready with a reactive response. 1 minute it's a new coach. The next it's a captaincy shakedown. They keep changing gears mid-race and somehow expect to cross the finish line in a single piece. Last week, Pakistan cricket hit a new low. A 3-match test series against England kicked off. They lost the first test in Multan and it was a meteoric defeat. It was the first time in test history that a team lost by an innings despite posting over 500 runs batting first. That was Multan pitch for you, coupled of course with a lackluster performance by Pakistan batters. After that horrific display, the country's cricket board held an emergency meeting. It lasted for around 2 hours. Right, so given these circumstances, you knew what was coming. The most mercurial and unpredictable cricket team in the world is surprisingly very predictable when it comes to this, problem solving, in the most bizarre ways that they truly can. A shake-up for the next game seemed in line, but their latest move has surprised cricket fraternity all over. PCB decided to drop their best batter in that lineup, ex-captain Babar Azam. He won't be featuring in any of the remaining matches in the series. Along with him, as per reports, two top pacers have also been cut loose, Shaheen Afridi and Naseem Shah. It feels less like a strategy and more like shooting aimlessly and hoping to hit bullseye. Officially, these players are being rested. Let's look at Babar Azam. He's had a poor batting average since last year, sure. He's been under the pump. Captaincy concerns also not really helping him and pegging him back when it comes to his batting too. But instead of persisting with your best batter, PCB have agreed that showing him the door to supposedly clear his head is the best solution at this point. The selection committee members feel it will get him back on track. But how does this make any sense at all? To regain form, players need to be in the middle of it all, in the heat of the battle. They need support during a tough stretch. Instead of doing that, the selectors have tossed them aside. Let me point out something here. Pakistan's cricket board held what they called a connection camp. We spoke about it here. It was held last month. It was aimed to address issues surrounding the team, its management, improve the general system of cricket in Pakistan, resurrect cricket in Pakistan, to be precise. Guess who attended that camp? Babar Azam and Shaheen Afridi. Talk about disconnection. Fans, of course, have come out in droves ridiculing this move ahead of the second test. Some cricket experts in there too having their say, and of course other cricketers had to express their shock and anger. Fakhr Zaman, one of them, has called out this madness. He came out in strong support of Babar Azam.
India didn't bench Virat Kohli during his rough stretch between 2020 and 2023, when he averaged 19.33, 28.21 and 26.50 respectively. If we are considering sidelining our premier batsman, arguably the best Pakistan has ever produced, it could send a deeply negative message across the team. There is still time to avoid pressing the panic button. We should focus on safeguarding our key players rather than undermining them.
The Babar Azam situation, of course, screams disaster, especially when you compare it to a scenario in India with respect to Virat Kohli. Of course, he's had his fair share of rough years in the past, but the year 2014 in particular was brutal. Kohli struggled a lot during that tour to England. He was in his worst possible form. Back then, Kohli and his family faced a ton of heat from trolls and critics alike. But the Indian Cricket Board didn't bail out on him. They had his back. You always back your best. That faith kept Kohli going. If there's one thing Pakistan needs to learn from India, one of quite a few, it is this. Babar Azam's benching is a sign of a system that isn't in good health, that values quick fixes rather than strengthening a system. If they want to stop floundering, they need to show faith and not dump players at the first sign of trouble. The second test between Pakistan and England, of course, starts off on Tuesday, 15th October. England rides high after the first win. They're buzzing with confidence, boosted also of the news of their all-rounder Ben Stokes possibly taking the field. Pakistan, on the other hand, will look to battle not just a formidable opponent on the field, but also the chaos in that dressing room. French captain Kylian Mbappé is under fire. Why? Because he gave playing for his country a miss and took a break to recharge instead. For those uninitiated, here's a bit of a primer. It began when Mbappé announced that he would miss some of France's UEFA Nations League matches due to an injury. Fans, of course, sympathized initially. Injuries, after all, can sideline even the best of players. Then, of course, came the second incident. Just days after that, Mbappé turned up for Real Madrid. He returned to the pitch in Champions League and also for Real's La Liga game against Villarreal. This was when supporters started asking why couldn't Mbappé do that for France. The situation further worsened when he was spotted at a Stockholm nightclub on the same night France played Israel. France, of course, ended up winning that encounter, rather clinically. 4-1 the scoreline, a thumping win. But fans were left talking about not the result, but images of Mbappé enjoying his night out. And that enraged fans. Criticism poured in from various quarters, commentators, fans all weighed in on this. Some very harsh tweets out there. Former PSG player Gregory Paisley, in fact, said as a captain, Mbappé needed to set an example. Look, we all know what the larger issue here is. Athletes are often held to a higher moral standard. They're expected to embody the utmost sense of dedication and discipline, both on and off the field at all times. And this holds true mostly for someone like Kylian Mbappé, someone of his stature, the player who has the eyes of the entire world on him. He enjoys stupendous stardom, and when that kind of spotlight is on you, even a night out becomes a bit of a headline the next morning. His teammates in the French squad, though, are not buying into the outrage. Chelsea's Wesley Fofana came out in his defense.
Mbappé going to Sweden? Everyone does what they want in their free time. It's not a topic of discussion. It isn't something we have talked about today. I hadn't heard about this story. Are we making too much of it? I don't know. He's the best French player, so it's normal that it is very publicized. I think that from time to time go a little too far. You should ask Kylian Mbappé.
So there's that question. Are fans and the media at large holding Mbappé to an impossible standard? Mbappe's situation is a little more complicated, of course. He is the captain of the French squad. The responsibility of setting an example, leading from the front every single time, falls squarely on him. Also because of vice-captain Antoine Griezmann's recent retirement from international football. Griezmann had been long since a core figure in that French lineup. In the light of all this, and of course his exit, the spotlight naturally falls on the young Mbappé. He has undoubtedly added more weight to his responsibilities. Another point to note, Mbappé didn't act out of line. He didn't sneak out or abandon his duties. He chose to spend the time that he knew was his own, the way he wanted to unwind. That doesn't make him any less committed to his team than he already is. A similar statement echoed by France's boss Didier Deschamps.
I don't follow the news of players who are not here. Kylian is following a program with Real Madrid. I don't know if he was away or not. Like any player for his club, he follows a program. If players have days off, they are free to do what they want.
In a video statement released by the French Football Federation, Coach Deschamps made it clear that while Mbappé remains a crucial figure for France, his main employer still is his club, Real Madrid. I have to cite the incident of Marcus Rashford here. He was given a dressing down by his coach and manager, Erik ten Hag. What did he do? He called in sick for a training session, skipped it the day after a loss. No reason to be pulled up, right? But then pictures started coming out of Rashford out partying in Belfast, meaning he was not sick. That prompted a disciplinary action. That is why Mbappe's situation is fundamentally different. He wasn't hiding a condition or lying about his fitness. The criticism directed at him isn't based on deception or neglecting his duties, but rather on the moral expectation that he should be resting and winding down in a more traditional way, a way that seems more acceptable, especially if you're someone in the public eye. Time for last serve. Cuban star Eric Hernandez is ready to break the record for most soccer touches, juggling with his head and feet. Can he knock out a record held since 2017? Take a look. Had some serious skills there. That does it here on First Sports. I'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, do take care. Bye-bye.
Firstpost decodes the U.S. election, explains how America chooses its president. Your primer on the race to the White House. Everything you need to know about how America votes and its global implications. U.S. Election Explained. Every Monday and Thursday only on Firstpost.